Hello my friends, ever since I bought Sony A6500 I was struggling with finding suitable lenses that can match the capabilities and image quality of Sony A6500, and this video will be about 4 lenses that can cover my needs for shooting both stills and video, about some alternatives to those lenses, and I will also talk about newly announced Sony 18-135mm f3.5 to 5.6 OSS zoom lens, rumored Venus Optics Laowa 9mm f2.8 for APS-C E-mount, and Sigma 50mm f1.4 DC DN also for the E-mount. So the first lens on my list is the new Sigma 60mm f1.4 DC DN, the best wide-angle lens for Sony A6500 in my opinion. Since this lens was released, it got many positive reviews. I can't think of any reviewer who didn't like this lens. It is extremely sharp. Even at f1.4 the sharpness is very decent, especially the corner sharpness is surprisingly good at f1.4. Once you stop it down to f2.8 it is very sharp across the frame, and at f5.6 it is extremely sharp and very suitable even for large prints of landscapes. Unfortunately, the image quality doesn't really suffer from lens corrections that need to be applied because of the distortion. Also at f1.4 it is very suitable for low light shooting and for blurring background even at that wide angle, and thanks to 9 aperture blades the out of focus background looks great with this lens. Also the build quality is excellent, it is weather sealed, mostly made of metal, the autofocus works as well as with Sony lenses, also the face detection works in all models, there is very little autofocus noise. So overall I'm very happy with this lens. It is basically the first ever product on this channel where I didn't find any negatives at all. It is a great match for Sony A6500, which has in-body image stabilization. I have made a full in-depth review of this lens, so you can take a look at that. Even the price is good in my opinion. It costs less than half of the Fujifilm equivalent, and for current pricing there is a link in the description. Regarding the alternatives, this lens is quite unique in the lineup. There is Samyang 12mm f2 if you need even wider focal length. It is manual lens with no autofocus, but it is very sharp and still fast at f2, and the price is also good. If you need classic ultra-wide to wide-angle zoom lens, there is Sony 10-18mm f4. Optically it is far behind that Sigma and Samyang, it is also much slower at f4, but for most purposes the sharpness will be sufficient and it will give you more flexibility. The second lens on my list is Sony 16-50mm f3.5 to 5.6 kit lens. This lens cannot match the image quality that Sony A6000 series cameras are capable of delivering. Optically it is far worse than other lenses on my list, but it can do something different, which is turning your Sony A6000 series camera into very capable point and shoot CSC camera. So when I attach it to A6500 it is a bit like RX100 Mark V with APS-C sensor and dual stabilization with 24 to 75mm full frame equivalent focal range. Of course it is bigger than RX100, but it also provides more features, better handling and big sensor, and it is still a very small package. I used it as my main lens when I was in Bali in September, and I have to say that the images still look very good in my opinion. If you stop this lens down to f8, it is actually fairly sharp. I haven't found the sharpness to be the problem for most of the purposes. Weak contrast and color reproduction will be more visible than lack of sharpness. But for the price and for the size, I'm actually happy with the image quality. The autofocus with this lens is extremely fast. It is also power zoom lens, so the clear image zoom works seamlessly while giving you 100mm focal length in 4K video. So overall, it is the most surprising lens that I've ever tested, and I definitely mean that in positive way. So for walk around, casual shooting, for traveling or discreet shooting, 16-50mm power zoom kit lens is my choice. The alternatives are 16 to 70mm f4 size branded Vario Tessar, which is lens with average optical characteristics, quite a bit overpriced because of that size branding. Especially the corner sharpness of that lens is quite poor for the price, but as universal walk around lens the image quality will be probably fine for most users, and this lens is also quite small. The second alternative is 18-105mm f4 power zoom lens. That one is fairly large lens. Optical characteristics are also fine, but nothing special. For me, the deal breaker with this lens is the minimal focusing distance of 45 centimeters, but it is a good lens for filmmaking and gimbal use thanks to the internal zoom and power zoom feature. I would probably prefer it to 16-70mm f4. Both of these lenses are also image stabilized, which is definitely an advantage. The third lens is Sigma 18-35mm f1.8 with MC11 adapter. I've talked about this lens in previous videos, so here I will be very brief. 18-35 is the sharpest zoom lens for crop sensors cameras overall. It beats most of the prime lenses. It is great for low light. Optically, there is nothing that I would complain about. The build quality is also very good. The zoom ring and focusing ring are great. The autofocus with MC11 adapter is excellent. I have also made video where I explained why it was my most used lens of 2017, but I always say in those videos that this lens might not be for everyone, because with the adapter it is quite a big lens, and ergonomics with Sony's small APS-C cameras are not very good, which is why I don't use it that much outside of my house. Also, the autofocus motor is so loud that you can't use onboard mic on shotgun mic with this lens. Using MC11 adapter increases battery consumption, it is not weather sealed, and also the zoom range of 27-52.5mm is quite short, so it may not be enough for walk around lens. But for things like product photography, tech reviews, or if you just want uncompromised image quality with a bit of flexibility, this lens is hard to beat. The alternatives are the two zoom lenses that I already talked about, so 18-105mm and 16-70mm, although those are far behind in terms of image quality and maximal aperture, but they have wider zoom range. Alternative is also to buy a couple of prime lenses, something like Sigma 60mm f1.4 DC DN and Sigma 30mm f1.4 DC DN, or Sony 35mm f1.8 OSS. That would actually be more expensive. Of course, the setup would be lighter, but there would be a gap between 16 and 30 or 35mm focal lengths, which proves that Sigma 18-35mm really is an interesting choice for the money. The fourth lens is actually the one that I don't have yet, but it will be 50mm lens, and I'm deciding between a few alternatives. The first is Sony 50mm f1.8 OSS. That one is reasonably priced. There are some optically superior lenses out there, but it has the image stabilization, which would be very useful because at longer focal lengths in-body image stabilization is less effective. The second alternative is Sigma 50-100mm f1.8, so the longer variant of 18-35mm. That one is optically excellent, but there are basically the same disadvantages as with 18-35mm. And the third alternative brings us to the rumor part of this video, because Sigma 50mm f1.4 DC DN is rumored to be released in 2018, and I guess that optical qualities of 50mm f1.4 from Sigma combined with full native lens functionality will be worth waiting. Sony has also announced new APS-C 18-35mm f3.5 to 5.6 OSS lens. That could potentially be a very useful lens with that 27-202.5mm full frame equivalent focal range. It is just 88mm long, which is quite remarkable considering that focal range. It probably won't be weather sealed, and there unfortunately is that 45cm minimal focusing distance, but I'm very curious what the optical qualities will be like, and I will probably get it once the street price goes down. Currently it is priced at $599. The second rumored lens that probably will be announced in January 2018 is Venus Optics Laowa 9mm f2.8, so ultra-wide 14.5mm full frame equivalent lens. It will be kind of similar to 7.5mm f2 micro four thirds lens, so completely manual, and as we can see from this picture it is really small. So in combination with Sony A6500 it could be used as sort of action camera for advanced productions, and I would definitely be interested in that lens since I really like shooting ultra wide. At the moment, the lens that I miss the most in APS-C E-mount lineup is some kind of 16 to 50mm f2.8. That would be really great to have. Also some sharper budget telephoto lens. But other than that, I'm actually pretty happy with the lenses that I have for A6500, especially that Sigma 60mm f1.4 was a very nice addition, and once I get some 50mm lens, I guess that my collection will be complete. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.